Hello, it's Shane Renee, and today I want to talk to y'all about something completely different than I ever talk about. I talk about astrology, I read cards, I entertain y'all with jokes, things like that in my short videos. So everybody is always talking about, what it's like to be a survivor of a narcissistic relationship or a codependent relationship, toxic relationship, um, all the above, and nobody ever comes on here and talks about what it's like actively being in a relationship like that. And so I wanted to talk about this with you guys because I feel like I have a unique perspective to offer. First of all, let me start by saying that my partner has what's known as ASPD, also known as sociopathy or psychopathy, with highly narcissistic tendencies. And I have what is known as a borderline personality disorder with some narcissistic tendencies as well. So, um, I'm not going to go too far into what those, diagnoses mean. If you are curious, you can go on Google to find out more about that. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not here to educate you on the disorders. I'm here. I want to share my unique experiences, like I said, because nobody ever talks about this while they're actively like in these relationships. Um, I've been inspired to talk about this because I watch a lot of content on YouTube, concerning narcissism, but I don't see a whole lot about sociopathy. Not okay. All sociopaths are narcissists, but not all narcissists are sociopaths. Okay, and as I said, I'm borderline personality disorder. So a lot of times, people with ASPD or AKA sociopath or psychopath is very much drawn to people with borderline and vice versa. People with borderline personality disorder can often be drawn to narcissistic personalities, whether they actually have NPD or not, which is narcissistic personality disorder. Because somebody can be highly narcissistic and not have NPD. Okay, um, but I watch a lot of this content and I don't really relate with a lot of it because they are often coming from this very victimized point of view where they're the victim, they are the prey or whatever, or the supply of the narcissist. And although I can relate to some of the scenarios or some of the situations that are talked about in these videos, for me, it always leaves me questioning myself like, well, damn, am I the narcissist? Am I really a victim? Are they really like this? Are they really like that? And I realize that a lot of people in these situations do have these questions. But my perspective is different because I am a reality creation coach or a manifestation coach, meaning that I largely believe that we create our circumstances with our subconscious beliefs, our emotions, um, our thoughts. Okay, so in no way am I victim shaming or victim blaming or saying like, oh, it's your fault you're with that person. But I just feel like there's way too much focus placing on the victimization of, the person experiencing the toxic relationship, when in truth, in my opinion, in order to like carry on a connection or a relationship with a person, like this, that you have to also have like some toxic traits yourself. Let's just be real. All right. So I know that I'm probably going to get a lot of controversy for making this video, but it's true. You know, so I'm going to talk a lot more about this stuff on my channel. This is kind of like maybe just an introductory video, just to kind of like put some feelers out there and just kind of see like if anybody else, comes from my standpoint of view. Like, I don't want anybody out there like, guilting themselves, gaslighting themselves, blaming themselves for any of, the toxic behavior that you are encountering in a relationship. But as a spiritual person, I just have to share my point of view that a large amount of the time, if you are involved with said personalities, borderline, narcissistic, psychopath, whatever, that you're mirroring. They're a mirror of you. Just like everything else, when it comes to being spiritual, like everything that you experience is a projection, an outer reflection of yourself. But I will be taking like topics, especially like those of you who are still involved in narcissistic relationships, specifically those who are involved in toxic relationships, narcissistic relationships, sociopathic relationships, borderline relationships, because those are y'all are the people that I want to talk to, because I'm also still actively in a pathological relationship. Like, I know that you guys come on YouTube and you're like, yeah, like, I'm coming up here, I want to get help, I want to hear from somebody who survived it, and you do, but it sometimes doesn't make it any easier for you to deal with where you're at. I just feel like maybe, just maybe the world could use somebody who's actively going through what you're going through, because there's nobody making YouTube videos that are actively in these relationships. There's millions or thousands or however many people talking about after how they got out, after they survived, or if they've never even been in one, they just happen to be like, licensed therapists and things like this. And this is beautiful that they're out to help. But I personally feel like, if you want to get out of these relationships, or even if you want to improve the relationship in as much as it can be, because, like, look, when you're dealing with pathological personalities, whether it's one person or both, it's going to look different than a normal, healthy, happy relationship. But if you want to even consider improving your circumstances, or if you do want to get out, I feel like the answer lies, first of all, with stop seeing yourself as a victim. Because as long as you see yourself as a victim of this person, then you are constantly claiming that they have power over you. Okay? And as a spiritual coach, that's just not how it works. You don't grow and you don't change, you don't expand by continuing to claim to be the victim of its circumstances, of a person, of anything. All right. So, like I said, I don't have a particular subject about these toxic relationships I'm talking about today. I probably most definitely will talk about them later. This is kind of an introductory, just So you guys leave comments, tell me what you think. You're welcome to ask so many questions. You can bring up topics, situations, experiences that you have had or are having in a toxic relationship. And one more thing I want to say before I close the video is that just because I want to reiterate this, you may be dealing with a toxic person, but it does not mean that they have NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. It does not mean that they have ASPD, sociopath, psychopath. It does not mean that they are borderline personality disorder. It does not mean they're any of these things, because I'm not a doctor. I can't diagnose. But I do know that a lot of people throw around the term narcissist. It's very casual these days. And I understand that, a lot of people are in toxic relationships, but to be real with you, people who are actually diagnosed with some of these disorders that I just mentioned is actually low compared to the population. So though you may be dealing with somebody who has traits or highly narcissistic tendencies, does not mean that they have these disorders. It doesn't make it any less, whatever. But I just want y'all to understand that when you're dealing with somebody who actually has a pathological disorder, it's a little bit, I'm not gonna say worse, but it's a little bit more intense than when you're dealing with somebody who just has, toxic traits. But, everybody's pain is personal to them, and you can't tell anybody that they feel any less than another person, because that's just not true. Everybody's pain is their own. But yeah, drop y'all's thoughts, comments, whatever, and feedback, and let's talk about it. Let's expand on this topic about what it's really like to be actively in these relationships.